Hello and welcome back to India on 99.94, your home of Indian cricket content. I'm your host, Nikesh Ragani, as always, BBC and SEN cricket commentator, alongside my co-host, Sarah Waris of Wisden. And Sarah, busy one to get through. T20 World Cup Super 12 stage ticking down. The days are coming at us thick and fast, and not long to go until India versus Pakistan. So we're going to not quite preview the match. We'll have another episode previewing the India versus Pakistan match in more detail in the next day or so. But for now, we are going to talk about India's batting approach. India's batting seems to be their biggest strength going into this T20 World Cup. So we'll look at that, how that's changed since the last T20 World Cup a year ago. We'll also look at India being one of the favourites, along with Australia and England, and whether that tag is helpful or not. And we've also got politics to discuss. There's always politics, isn't there, with Indian cricket, and the whole leadership debate at the top of the BCCI. Saurav Ganguly out, Roger Binny in, Jay Shah remaining put. So all of that to come on today's episode. But Sarah, let's kick off then, because you've been looking at the numbers, haven't you, with India's batting approach in T20 international cricket over the last year or so since the last T20 World Cup. You've been crunching the numbers. You've written an article for Wisden as well. Just tell us how that has changed and why we're all sort of gleaming about the batting all of a sudden.
Yeah, after the last World Cup, after the first round exit, Rohit Sharma was very vocal about changing the batting approach. Uh, the captain and the management, the coach, they understood, they identified that the batting approach was not what it should be in T20Is, and yeah, I have numbers to prove that also. From 2018, I'm not going way back before 2018 because obviously the game has changed, and T20I obviously the game has changed a lot. So going back and having stats from before won't really make a lot of sense. So from 2018, just want to talk about how the batting approach of the top three and the middle order has changed, which has led to an overall change in the batting approach. So top three from 2018 to 2021, they had a strike rate of 137, 138, which was, yeah, okay, not that bad, but not that great also, especially the fact that, they occupied around 11 overs in every match. So, batting 11 overs for at a strike rate of 138 left very little for the middle order to do. It's almost like the template which Pakistan cricket are following off late. The openers, they hog most of the strike, and then it gets tough for the middle order to get going, and which is exactly what happened. So the middle order, then from 2018 to 21, they only had a strike rate of 132. So the overall, the score, the pass score which India managed, average score which India managed was around 160, 165, considering, the strike rate was not the greatest. And since the World Cup, the overall strike rate has changed 146, the overall team strike rate, which is the best in the world. The top three is batting with a strike rate of 142, uh, not a big improvement, but a significant change from the 138 which they had earlier. And the middle order, they had a strike rate of 132, which has increased to 152 in the last, 11 or 12 months, which is a significant change. So just, it's just a change of around 25, 30 runs, but that has, you know,
That's massive,
changed.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Yeah. So, uh, Rohit was vocal about it, and it's encouraging to see, how the entire batting order has taken on that approach and are,
Yeah.
taking steps to improve it. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like it's a Rohit Sharma thing, isn't it? The change
Mm.
in captaincy, of course, since the last T20 World Cup across all formats, and it was very much Virat's. I don't know if it was his idea or just based on the personnel available to him, but it was a tactic of his, certainly, to have at least one or two guys in that top
Mm.
four who could bat through, who could play that anchor role. And that all seems to have gone out the window. I mean, KL Rahul was getting so much stick for so many years. I mean, look, he'd been playing for the Kings 11 Punjab, or the Punjab Kings as they later became known, and didn't really have much support in that batting lineup. So he was asked to play that anchor role there. And so that sort of translated a little bit into the national side in more recent times as well. He's gone over to Lucknow again. You know, there were some similar issues in that season with the Lucknow Super Giants as well, but he's gone into beast mode recently, hasn't he? And he's scoring 50s for fun,
Mm.
and not just scoring 50s, but scoring them at a very, very impressive strike rate, which is exactly what we know he can do, what he should be doing, and what is needed in modern T20 cricket from a player of his quality at the top of the order. And especially in a side which generally, I mean, before the injury to Jadeja specifically, batted so deep and tends to bat quite deep. And even now, you know, some of the selections, the fact that Herschel gets picked quite often and things like that is it's because they want to bat so deep and they want to use that tactic of everybody just goes hard. And it doesn't matter if we lose 4 or 5 wickets, we're going to keep going hard. And only in certain situations where you really are down to the tail, if you lose another wicket, you see that bit of caution sometimes for an over or two. But it's just refreshing to see, isn't it? And it's not just, I mean, we talk about Kohli and his tactics as captain, but the fact that he is a batter as well is now in beast mode. And that sort of started with the England series, didn't it? India's tour of England in 2022, the white ball series after that one-off test. And Roy just said, look, we're going to go hard. They scored well over 200 in that first game at Southampton and never really looked back, even when they were in losing positions in a couple of those games through the T20s and the ODIs. They just carried on with that tactic. It's great to see. It's rubbing off on all the senior guys. And Sarah, they need to use that to
Yeah.
their strength, don't they, in this World Cup? Because with the injury to Bumrah, with the question marks over the death bowling and just the bowling in general, really, the fact that Yuzi might have gone off the boil a little bit in recent times, that becomes even more crucial, doesn't it? That extra 20, 30
Yeah.
runs in a match, that's the difference between you qualifying, between making the final and not, isn't it?
Yeah. Before I get into that, in the middle, I liked how you spoke about that one-off test match and not the fifth test match. If it was someone from England, like,
It was a one-off test
yeah,
match. We won. Look, according to India on
yeah,
99.94, and all of our subscribers and our followers, our listeners, our viewers on YouTube, it was a four-match series in 2021,
yeah,
which India won 2-1. London was conquered with the victories at the Oval and Lords, and we just came off, played a one-off
yeah.
test match, let the ECB make the money that they lost out the year before. No harm done. Let them play their basball for a bit, and then we go and beat them in the white ball stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the batting, which you said, the injury to Bumrah just adds on the pressure on the batting to do even better than they've been doing off late. Another stat which I had was India have lost 9 matches since the T20 World Cup last year out of 35. And in four of them, they have scored more than 170 and still lost, and twice they had to chase 210 plus, one against England and the other against South Africa. So they lost both of them. uh, they reached close to 200 against England, all out for 175 178 against South Africa. So it's the bowling which has been letting them down, and so the batting has been doing their job. But with Bumrah not there, and all the death over issues and all, it just increases the pressure on the batters and on the bowlers also. So kind of, it's a very lopsided team, I think, which is going into the World Cup, because the batting is so good on one hand, but on the other, 6 out of 9 times uh, they have lost despite scoring more than 175 runs, which is, a massive concern. So I don't know how in such a short span they are going to change that, or if it can be changed, but I just hope that it's
Don't
better in
worry.
the World Cup.
You're
Yeah.
stressing, Sarah. I can feel the tension coming through the screen.
Yeah.
I can feel the usual sort of drama and the hope and the expectation, and then the realization that the bowling's not quite up to the
Yeah.
scratch. And how are we going to do well in this tournament? How are we going to win this ICC tournament? Don't worry, Shami's there. Shami's back. He's the
Fully.
man, right?
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah,
that
he's
every
the one.
time.
Unfortunate that the warm up against New Zealand was washed out, because it would
Yes.
have given the bowl, Shami especially, a chance. Again, it makes me wonder why Shami didn't play a bigger role in the match against Australia. Like, why did he just bowl one over? He could have easily sent down 4 overs if he was fit. So again, that's
I'll
somehow
tell you
on the
why.
management. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to show the world, do they? I mean, Shami's clearly he's been locked up in a lab for the last few months.
Yeah.
They say he had COVID and all that. He's been locked up in a secret lab somewhere in the vicinity of the NCA. They've been honing these new skills with him. He's come out beast like. He's ready to conquer the world, and they don't want to show the world all of his secrets just yet until the tournament kicks off, until that first match against Pakistan. Even the rain in that New Zealand game,
Yeah.
look, it was probably engineered by some very clever scientists. Just look, we don't want to show the world our hand. It's like playing poker, isn't it? You don't show your hand too early. But in all reality,
Yeah.
though, it was a shame that match was rained on, not just because of the Shami situation, but the fact that India's top order could have played against Trent Bolt. They're going to come up against Shaheen in that first match on Sunday. And that would have been a good test, wouldn't it? Just for the top order to face another quality left arm seamer like that in those conditions, and just almost have a net against a Shaheen Shah Afridi type bowler.
Yeah. Also, what's interesting is, also I know this was a warm up match, but India have a terrible record against New Zealand in ICC events. So they've not won a single match against New Zealand since 2003, I think, in any ICC event. Which is, yeah, you talk about India Pakistan,
Even
and
the
we
World
talk
Test
about,
Championship
yeah,
final,
yeah,
right?
even the World Test Championship, yeah. So that would have been a huge, challenge for them, facing a strong team like New Zealand. We talk about India, Pakistan, but like New Zealand, always have had the upper hand against them recently. So yeah, unfortunate that India missed the chance of playing against a very solid team. So it's all down to Sunday. Let's see what happens then. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope they can get some work done in the nets. They have played a lot of cricket of late, but it's like you
Yeah.
say, the likes of Shami, who haven't had that much time out in the middle, who could have done with that workout. Right, we're going to take a short break here, and then off the back of that, we will discuss the favourites tag, or being one of the favourites. Is that a help or a hindrance for India? See you in a moment.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So then, looking at the latest bookies odds, we can see that Australia are just about favourites ahead of England, and then come India. I mean, those odds have been fluctuating over the last few days, particularly when England beat Australia, and then England and India both became more favourites to win. In fact, India were favourites at one stage for a brief moment in time. With some of the bookies as to to win the tournament outright, and then Australia have come back since and are favourites once again on home soil as holders as well. They're always, I mean, they're the big three in inverted commas. They sort of run world cricket. India kind of runs it, and those two are like the assistants, I suppose. It's where all the money is. It's where all the glamour is. They tend to be favourites going into any white ball tournament these days. In the last 4 or 5 years. Firstly, I'm not going to ask you, should India be one of the favourites? They probably should. Um, is that a hindrance though? Going into, because basically from every tournament since about 2011, India have been the favourites to win, or amongst the top 2 or 3 favourites to win. They they won the 2011 World Cup on home soil. That was brilliant. They won the Champions Trophy in England in 2013. It's been a big fat duck since then. Nothing in terms of ICC tournaments. Is that pressure just a bit too much? And particularly when you've not got captain cool like MS Dhoni leading your side anymore, and to kind of take that pressure from the media and the journalists and everyone building up into the tournament. Is that just proving too much for this India side? Can they handle it one more time?
I know what the odds say, but are they really the favorites?
Well,
For
third
me, I
favourites
think
according to the bookies.
no. Do you think they're the favorites? Because according to me, in the last 10 years or so, I think this is the lowest that India have had, have a chance of winning. Like according to me, because before the
Yeah,
Asia
well,
Cup, I would say, yeah, okay, India were favorites. I was so, confident in predicting they'd win the Asia Cup and all. But after that, the issues that came up were just very frightening. And I'd say they're not the favorites at all. Even like today, we had my semi-finals are going to be Australia, England, South Africa, Pakistan. South Africa have done well
I know
against
why you've done
India
that.
recently. Yeah.
I know why you've done that. We don't often get predictions right, so hopefully that's
Yeah.
another one to add to the collection. But look, yeah, South Africa have been playing brilliantly, but Pakistan, on the other hand, England beat them in that series. It was a very good series, very close series, 4-3 in that 7-match monster series. It was almost like a full-blown tour of the country, wasn't it? From the old days where you just tour somewhere for 2 months. It was a long series, but it was good. It was a very strong England side, but it wasn't England's best side. Butler wasn't playing, for example. They're missing 1 or 2 key personnel. Obviously, Jofra Archer's been out for quite some time as well. Now, no Reece Topley as well. So England have got their own issues, but they did beat Pakistan. Pakistan rely quite heavily on their top 2, so there's question marks over the middle order, who have fired on occasion recently, but it remains to be seen, really. And is Shaheen fit? Can he be the same Shaheen that we saw in the last World Cup? We don't know yet. I mean, yeah, he's done it in the warm-up games, took a couple of wickets earlier today as we're recording here. And that means nothing really in a warm-up game where there's nothing at stake and it's not an official a game as such. So South Africa, yes, they've been playing well against India. They've played a lot of cricket recently, though. Fatigue could come into it. Again, it's the big tournament, South Africa, with that tag of being chokers at big tournaments.
India
Different players,
chokers,
different
I'd say.
personnel. India have choked recently. You're right.
Yeah.
India have been choking in the knockout stages of ICC tournaments. So I think it's quite open, and yeah, it's going to be 2 out of India, Pakistan, and South Africa. Let's see how it goes.
I think New Zealand
imagine
will sneak in somehow.
Yeah,
New Zealand
exactly.
always have, they are never the
Good point.
favorites, and then they always somehow manage to sneak in. So,
Well, you'd imagine,
we really
look,
can't write them off.
if you went according to the bookies, it'd be Australia and England, and not just according to the bookie. Most cricket fans would say, yeah, Australia and England, 100%. Australia on home soil, defending champions. They've got a great side. England have been playing some really good cricket as well. But New Zealand are in their group, and that makes it so tough. And New Zealand can never be counted out at these major tournaments as well. We still don't know who's going to qualify from the preliminary round as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe 1 or 2 surprises in terms of results, at least in the group. Not saying any of the qualifying sides will make the semis, but they could upset 1 or 2 of the bigger sides, couldn't they? So that could come into it as well. The unknown factor for some of these bigger sides, having not come across the Namibias and the Netherlands of this world. Let's see who makes it through first, and we'll discuss that further. It's quite open. I wouldn't say India anywhere near the favourites either, and that's speaking objectively. Just the way everyone else has been playing, the way India have been playing, the bowling problems and all that kind of stuff. But it still remains the fact that with the bookies, there's a lot of money coming in on India, which is why the odds are shortening. And yeah, there are more Indian cricket fans than anyone else in the world, but it's also the media pressure, isn't it? There's an expectation. It doesn't matter what tournament it is. It doesn't matter who you're up against, what your group is, what your fixtures look like. India must win. And anything other than a tournament win is a failure. And that wasn't the case for me growing up. You didn't go to every tournament thinking India are going to win. You think, all right, if we get to the semis, it's quite good. We beat Pakistan along the way. It's great. And it's a successful tournament. The 2003 World Cup is a great example of that. Weren't the favourites going into it by any stretch. It was one of the great Australia sides of all time. One of the great cricket sides of all time that ended up beating India in that final, beat India in the group stage as well. And then India had a dream run, made it to the final, but no one really thought they were going to beat that Australian side in their prime, and it didn't happen. And we look back on that quite fondly, don't we? That India had a great World Cup. It wouldn't be classed as a great World Cup now, would it? No. Does anyone remember the 2014 T20 World Cup final? Yeah, they might remember it for the wrong reasons of India losing in Bangladesh, but
Yuvraj,
Yuvraj playing like a test match and all that kind of stuff, and whatever the situation was. But everyone looks back on it and thinks, bloody hell, that was a shit tournament, wasn't it? Look what we did in the final. But making the final is no longer a success for Indian cricket. So there's a lot of pressure, and surely the players are aware of this. Everywhere they go, they know everyone's expecting them to win this tournament. Anything other than victory is classed as a failure, and they're going to cop it, aren't they? And that can't be easy, playing under that kind of pressure.
Yeah. One thing I'd say that works in India's favor is, how much they've improved their game while batting first. So I think, from till last year, it like if they lost the toss, it was almost like their struggles batting first were so evident that almost when they lost the toss, it was like, oh my god, India are going to struggle now. Again, another stat, like from 2018 to 21, when like they lost 50% of the games when they had to bat first. 32 times they made less than 170. In 32 games, they made less than 170 15 times, which uh, almost 50% of the time they made less than 170, which, yeah, obviously it's not an easy score. Like it's not a very tough score to chase down 170. So the troubles batting first were so evident, but after that they won, like since the World Cup last year, they won 68% batting first. They've scored 180, 18 times out of 35. So yeah, they have all the troubles, but till the last World Cup, it was almost like you were hoping that India wins the toss because they were a better chasing team and all of that, and then they ended up losing the toss to Pakistan, New Zealand, and their troubles were just compounded from that. So I think in this World Cup, I hope in this World Cup that the toss factor at least is removed a little bit. Uh, we are saying they're not the favorites and all, but at least I hope that this thing that. Like it won't really be dependent on the toss alone. Oh, yeah, so I think that one thing goes in their favor, that they've had a little success batting first also, which was a big concern uh, before that. So yeah, we are saying they're not the favorites, but again, somehow India always seem to rise during ICC events. Uh, in the sense they enter the semis, they have entered the semis
Not last time.
consistently. Yeah,
Not
not
last
last
time.
time, one off. Yeah, but I remember during the I don't know if I should say this in the whole fear of jinxing it, but 2015 World Cup, there were a lot of scrutiny on the Pacers. Before that, I think there was a tri series featuring England, Australia. The Pacers went for a lot of runs, and then the World Cup, they just came up. They picked up, wickets till the semi-final.
Yeah.
India bowled out the other teams, I think, in all games. So
Won every game as
Shami
well.
had, Shami had a standout tournament. So again, not saying anything for fear of jinxing, but
Shami rose on that occasion, and there were some randoms in there. Mohit Sharma had a
Yeah.
great tournament as well. I remember I was there covering every India match at that tournament, and yeah, it was great to see. And who knows, maybe that could happen again. Probably won't, but unless we
You
live in
never know.
hope, don't we?
Yeah.
But look, they will always be one of the favourites going into any ICC tournament these days. It's just the nature of how it is. And we'll discuss, of course, India versus Pakistan in more detail in our next episode. So do stay tuned to our feed, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're subscribing via your podcast provider as well. Just stay across our next episode because we'll have an in-depth preview of India versus Pakistan on Sunday, the 23rd of October. That match takes place, of course. We'll aim to have that to you by Friday. So, right, we're going to take another short break. And off the back of that, once again, politics rears its ugly head, I should say, in Indian cricket. We'll be back in a moment.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So, Sarah, politics in Indian cricket. I mean, look, there should. You've probably seen the film Rajniti or heard about it, certainly.
No, I've not seen it.
You've not seen it, but famous, big hit in
Yeah.
Indian cinema as well, all about the political nature and politics and elections. And they should make a cricket version of that, Rajniti 2, the BCCI or something like that, they should call it. And they could probably do a series on it, actually, a Netflix series or something. So Netflix India, if you're listening, I'll come on board as a consultant for that one if you get that going one day. But look, there's always something happening. I mean, we're on the verge of a T20 World Cup, but the BCCI are just doing things at their own pace, and they've removed I say removed. He's not going to serve a second term or another term as president. Sourav Ganguly, he's out. Roger Binney, 83 World Cup winner, is in. That is a bit of a random one for me. Certainly, I didn't strike me as somebody who's very political or into that sort of scene. Is he a puppet? We don't know. Jay Shah seems to be running the show. The government, obviously, his dad is the Home Secretary, so there's probably that influence somewhere, you would have thought as well. Just before we get on to Ganguly, of course, Jay Shah, as we mentioned, they're also the chief of the Asian Cricket Council, and he decided that the Asia Cup to be held next year, just after reports were coming out that India would tour Pakistan for that 2023 Asia Cup, he's decided that India won't, as the chief of the BCCI, probably based on government advice, he's decided that India won't tour Pakistan, and then just took that hat off, put his other hat on as the ACC chief, and then said, well, because India have decided that they can't tour, we'll have to move it to a neutral venue. So that's a bit mad, isn't it?
The quote was, I have decided that we will play at a neutral venue. It wasn't
And
we have decided.
Yeah. But no, but he said we for the...
It was, we have decided that we will not travel to Pakistan.
Yes.
I have decided that we will play at a neutral venue. So
Yeah.
just the power that he has, I have decided whatever happens, I will decide we'll play at a neutral venue. I will pick the venue. Pakistan don't want to come. Okay, they don't come, but I have decided this and this is what should be done, which is...
I mean, look, it's a shame.
That's politics, yeah. That's politics.
It's a shame.
in
It
India.
probably was never going to happen. I mean, I put out a tweet saying, reports. I saw reports and it was being reported quite widely. Reports suggest that India will tour Pakistan for that Asia Cup. Didn't last very long. Probably was never going to happen given the political situation between, tension at government level. And the BCCI has to listen to government advice on these things and couldn't do it. Pakistan fans not very happy about it. You can understand why, but I suppose they have to remember that in 2018, Pakistan didn't want to tour India, so they had to move that one to the UAE as well, the Asia Cup. So it swings and roundabouts. There's been fans saying, "Oh, we're going to boycott the 2023 ODI World Cup." Don't think that's going to happen as well. It's getting a bit messy. Look, it would have been nice, and it would have been nostalgic for all us fans who have seen tours of India and Pakistan back and forth over some of the years in the 2000s, from 04 to 07. They were playing each other all the time. It would have been nice. It wouldn't have been a full-blown tour. It would have been an Asia Cup tournament, so wouldn't have had to be there too long. It would have just been 4 or 5 matches, whatever, and done. And it would have been a nice gesture, I suppose, a hand of friendship extended between the two nations. Isn't to be. We've got to move on, and that's that.
One question before we move. 2016, Pakistan came to India for the T20 World Cup.
Yep.
The next ICC event in Pakistan is 2025 Champions Trophy. I know it's a long time away, but again, do you think see that happening?
It's an
or
ICC tournament. It's an
Yeah.
ICC tournament. So look, Pakistan have been several times, haven't they, for tournaments? 2011 World Cup was a famous one where there was a lot of tension
Yeah.
around that one, and there was actually thoughts of moving the final from Mumbai. I don't know how true those reports were, because India versus Pakistan in the semi-final in Mohali. What if Pakistan won that? Could they then go to Mumbai based on what happened in Mumbai in just 3 years prior to that, with the attacks and the links to Pakistan? And there were, I don't think Mumbai and the Shiv Sena party and whatever else would have welcomed the Pakistan team into Mumbai, and it could have been riots. So that was very tense, that situation around that. And they still came. As you say, they came in 2016. They'll probably come in 23, despite the empty threats at the moment.
I saw the India-Pakistan World Cup game at Eden Gardens in 2016, and it was just like one of the best cricketing moments. Like, I was there as a fan.
You can't beat it, can you, for
but
atmosphere?
Yeah,
For atmosphere, you can't beat it. I mean, you would have been at Eden Gardens, right? So
yeah.
it would have been all India fans.
Sachin was there.
I don't know if Pakistan fans would have been allowed at that point visas. A few of them did come for the 2011 World Cup, I remember. But watching them at neutral venues, like I've watched them in England several times. I've been to Australia. The Adelaide Oval was my favourite. It was, wherever you go, it tends to be, there's just more Indians in the world, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get more Indians in turn at cricket matches than whoever else they're playing. It's just the nature of how these things work. They're organised as well, the India fans. They tend to organise themselves in Bharat Army groups and all this kind of stuff, and they get the tickets in advance, and they plan their journeys years in advance. So they're very organised. That's probably why they end up eating up most of the tickets at these matches. So there were more India fans at the Adelaide Oval, but there was a healthy section of Pakistanis as well, and it was great to see. The atmosphere was great. You just can't beat those matches. So we do want to see more of them. It would have been nice if we could have seen India touring. I don't know about the 2025. Who knows? Is there another Indian general election on the horizon between now and then?
So
24. So who knows, right? I mean, that it's unlikely that the BJP will be, lose their power. Whether Modi retires or who knows. Amit Shah will probably still be around. So it could be unlikely, but it's an ICC tournament, so it's different, isn't it? So they might just have to bite the bullet.
Unless the BCCI say, I have decided the World Cup, the Champions Trophy will be held at a neutral venue.
Well, unless
we can't rule that out here.
Well, they might install a chief of the ICC at some point between now and then as well. So an Indian. Who knows? Who knows? It'd be nice to see. It'd be nice to see full-blown tours back and forth once again. But I fear we're a long way from there at the moment. But given all that, in amongst all that, Sourav Ganguly has made way. He's no longer the president of the BCCI. As I mentioned, Roger Binney has now taken up that role. Doesn't leave behind a great legacy, Ganguly, as the BCCI president. Why do you think that is? Is it because he was basically a puppet? He's the only former Indian captain who's held that role as the chief of the cricket board. But was he really the chief? Was Jay Shah pulling all the strings? A lot of people think so. That's the way it looks at the moment as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and not a lot of like you expected improvements in so many fronts, especially women's cricket. He didn't do a lot. A lot, I'd say. Did he do anything for women's cricket? I don't think.
He delayed the
Except
IPL for a few
yeah,
years.
delayed the
So
IPL, delayed their payment. Um, in 2020, the tour to Australia was cancelled because BCCI said logistic reasons. Because 2021, sorry, logistical reasons, etc., etc. But at the same time, the men's team was in Australia at exactly the same time. 2021, the women's T20 challenge wasn't held when the men's IPL was shifted to UAE last year. But they just cancelled the T20 challenge saying logistical reasons. But you held the IPL, so it's obviously just bias. Then obviously the whole news leaks. There was no official communication from the BCCI. Reports just un- we got to know that Bumrah has been ruled out because of reports. The BCCI communication came in at least 3 or 4 days later. We got to know of the potential replacement. Obviously, we knew it would be Shami, but that was also from leaks and sources. Then the whole mess regarding Virat Kohli's captaincy. It was just, such an ugly week that uh, the fact that Kohli wasn't even given a call, and he was just told 1 hour during before the selection meeting that he is no longer the ODI captain. Then
but
no,
is this, how much of this is
yeah.
Ganguly and how much of it was Jay Shah? We don't know. I mean,
Yeah, but there
he,
were so many contradictory statements from
yeah,
Ganguly himself. Like,
true.
during the Kohli incident, he said, I personally requested Kohli to not step down from captaincy, which Kohli, in his press conference, he just denied it. He said, no one ever told me anything like that from the BCCI. Then there was this whole thing where, he was seen attending a selection meeting. The BCCI handled they themselves, posted a picture with the caption saying that the senior selection committee met in Kolkata today to pick the scores for the upcoming tour against West Indies. This was in 2019 November, and Ganguly is seen. Ganguly later said that no, I wasn't there in any selection meeting. This picture wasn't from a selection meeting. So, but the BCCI handled posted it saying it's from a selection meeting. So there were so many contradictory things, and it was just
It just
mess, I would
it
say.
wasn't a marriage made in heaven, was it?
Yeah,
let's put it that way. I mean, so much was expected of him based on what he did as a captain and as a leader during his playing days as well. Sort of took India post all the match fixing allegations and all that in
yeah,
2000, and just took them onto a new level. Brought that group of players together. They were playing for him. They'd go into battle for him. He was their leader. They started winning matches abroad, winning important test matches abroad, competing at multinational events as well, and really started sort of standing up for themselves on the world stage. And credit will always go to him for that. But a lot of
yeah.
a lot of that leadership, those leadership qualities were expected when he took up that role at the BCCI, and it wasn't to be. And yeah, it's just a
Also,
shame that
another
his
thing,
legacy is
yeah,
like that.
just 3 or 4 days after he became the BCCI president in 2019, he had said that his biggest priority, in quotes, his biggest priority would be to introduce a contract system for the first class players. It's been 3 years, but there's no um, there's no sign of a contract system even being announced or in the work. So, his biggest priority was that. So, yeah, it is down to Ganguly. Obviously, we don't know what role he had. Obviously, Jay Shah did control things, but he was the president after all, and he has to take responsibility for things that didn't work out. And it's, I think, fair to blame him for at least women's cricket and all these other things which we spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, just very very quickly here at the end, we there are reports. I mean, these are unconfirmed as well, so we don't know if they're true, but it's out there. It's been in several high profile publications over in India. The fact that he may well have carried on. I think the BJP, Amit Shah, wanted
Mhm.
him to be their candidate for
Mm.
becoming chief minister in Bengal. I think he refused. Obviously, that led to this. Perhaps we're being told, at least by those reports, and there's been nothing to sort of deny those reports that I've seen from the BJP itself. But apparently, he's going to go back and try and become the chief of the Cricket Association of Bengal as well. So, good luck to him. We wish him well in whatever he does in the future, but it just wasn't. It didn't work, did it? It didn't work. And we'll see how Roger Binney and Jay Shah and that partnership gets on.
One small thing before we wrap up. It's just such a big coincidence that just a few days after the Supreme Court extended the tenure of Jay Shah and Saurav Ganguly, that Jay Shah continues at his post and Saurav Ganguly has been axed. Like we are hearing, he's been sacked. So, Jay Shah continues his post, but almost like they were just waiting for the Supreme Court's verdict to come in, and then they just sacked Ganguly, and Jay Shah continues. So just that.
Yep, Jay Shah survives once more. So we'll see if Roger Binney and Jay Shah's Indian men's team, do we call them that? They're the bosses anyway. Our India team, shall we say? It belongs to the people, doesn't it? Well, we'll see how our India team prepares in the next couple of days, and we will be back with a full-blown preview ahead of India versus Pakistan. That match on Sunday, of course. We'll have it for you hopefully a couple of days before that. So thank you very much for listening to us here on India on 99.94. Do join us next time.